Welcome to the Clonestar Podcast. I'm your host, Jodi Pickens, and today we are celebrating 30 years of Star Trek First Contact with a conversation that I am genuinely very excited to have. As part of our Women of First Contact series, we're spotlighting the women who helped give this film its heart, its power, and its unforgettable presence. And today we're talking about Lily Sloane, a character who brought strength, honesty, and one of the most memorable voices in the entire film. And I'm especially thrilled to be joined by Ashlyn and Rhianna from the Duras Sisters Podcast for this one. They always bring such a fun, thoughtful, and engaging perspective to Star Trek conversations, and I know this is going to be another great one. It is always a blast getting to talk Trek with people who love these stories as much as I do, and this felt like the perfect way to celebrate the women of First Contact and Lily's lasting place in Trek history. Ladies, welcome. Thrilled to have you here.
Yay, thank you for having us.
Oh, of course, anytime, obviously. But I couldn't have this Women of First Contact series without inviting you both here. So I think definitely voices I wanted to hear from on this topic.
We're truly honored and love being a part of these Women of series. It's been really a blast.
Also, everything we do with Clonestar is a freaking blast. We were just talking about this pre-recording, so Rhianna and I are thrilled. Yeah.
Well, we are always glad to have you on board, and we'll talk more about it at the end, but I want people to go and find your podcast because it's so much fun, and the topics you explore and the conversations you have are just fun and phenomenal, and we need more of that in the Trek fandom, so go find the Duras Sisters. You won't regret it, I promise. So Lily Sloane, who I think is probably one of obviously a standout character of this film, but I think a standout character in Trek overall. At least that's my opinion, but I'm sure it's everyone's opinion. But she's non-Starfleet. She's becomes part of this Trek film that's gone. I mean, it's a legacy film. Like, people talk about the first gen films, and First Contact is the one that gets mentioned always first. But I wanted to ask, kind of like before we get into the nuts and bolts of talking about Lily, like, big picture, what was your impression of Lily when you first saw her on the screen in this movie?
I think for me, because I remember initially I watched the original series movies long before Next Generation, and I didn't watch any of the Next Gen movies until I had seen all of Next Generation. And so it was, I can't help thinking about Voyage Home, where we have Dr. Jillian, the whale, who's like the whale love interest lady in that movie. And I love her, Dr. Taylor. And I feel like, in a weird way, like, Star Trek struggles a lot with the random characters that they add in. And so I remember first watching First Contact and thinking, are they trying to make Picard and Lily happen? Like, they're dancing in the holosuite, and like he has that kiss on the cheek. Like, what? So I was like confused by why is she in here, until I saw the scene where she puts him in his place, and I was like, that's what she's here for. And so I thought it was a really interesting place for that character, because she was breaking out of the traditional love interest role, and she actually gets to do something fun that isn't just like go home and sleep with Captain Kirk. I'm not saying Dr. Taylor did at all. I'm not trying to, but that's typically the story with Captain Kirk. So so I think, if anything, she was really thought provoking in this movie, because she broke the mold. And I think as a high schooler, I think I probably was when I saw this movie, I was not like mentally prepared for how cool Lily was. It took me, now as an adult, I love Lily. Yeah.
That's a great answer, Ashlyn. I feel like too, she added a breath of fresh air, to use a cliche. I feel like she really added something that, like you said, a lot of this sort of woman of the movie that they do in Trek hadn't added before. But I think also she was a really great counterpoint to everything else that was going on in the movie, and a great counterpoint to Cochrane. I think that that's what stood out to me a lot in my first viewing as a kid, and also just like seeing a amazing Black woman on screen, and like it not necessarily having to be Guinan every time, like doing the heavy lifting, as much as I would love to see Guinan and her interact, but like,
oh my gosh, right?
That'd be amazing. But like, I think that there's something really intriguing about, and of course we could talk a little bit about race later on and how it plays a role in this. But I think that like, particularly having her be kind of the like person who's calling out the BS, I was really glad and refreshed to see that, particularly because The Next Generation, as we saw it as a show, and then kind of going on into these movies, has quite the sunny outlook on Starfleet, and really wants to believe in Starfleet's best and like always doing what's right. And everyone wants to believe that that First Contact was this like incredible event, that everyone was upstanding and moral and perfect, and that Cochrane was Starfleet values, like all of this kind of stuff. And so
yeah.
I kind of loved the fact that Lily poked holes into that. And also I could see, of course, now thinking about it from an analytical perspective and as like an adult, could also see how that also is somewhat sometimes like the Black woman's duty in a lot of film or a lot of like real life roles, is to be like the counterpoint or the person who's arguing against something, or having to like kind of be the contrarian. So that's could be a little problematic, but I also think that mostly I remember her just being such an inspiration for me. Also seeing a woman who could get angry and no one like dismissed her for it.
Right.
That was awesome. That really made me happy, because we haven't seen like the sort of like Uhura and Guinan, who were sort of the like standout Black women of Star Trek kind of up until First Contact. Didn't really have like, or weren't really quote unquote like able to get mad, because I think it probably would have been cut from viewership. And so I think there is something really important about having Alfre Woodard here be like, hey, I'm gonna play this a little angrier, and I'm gonna like call out this BS when I see it. And there's something really cool about that. So anyway, I mean, I love her. My cat's named Lily, not only because of Star Trek character, also from Lily from Studio Ghibli's Kiki's delivery service. She's a white cat, so it works out.
Excellent.
But I think of her a lot, and I have her in my Lily action figure.
Fantastic.
Meet a lot, and she usually bites her head. So I think Lily would be like, yeah,
that tracks.
One aggressive Lily to another is, they're both a little angry at each other, which works out great. But anyway, I love her. No, I think she's awesome. Yeah.
I think, I agree with what you both had to say there. And I think, she very much so was someone who didn't buy into the Starfleet idealism or mythology of what Starfleet kind of like to be. And I think she, cut that off real quick, in her interactions with Picard. But I do think, I think back to the film, and I don't think anyone else could have played her besides Alfre Woodard, and just, who Alfre Woodard was where she was with her career at that point in time. She was just such a recognizable force. She still is to this day, obviously. I mean, talk about just a powerhouse of a creative, an actor. And
she's amazing in Luke Cage.
Yes.
Haven't seen that
I always
show.
Forget that she's in that.
I think, and there's some incredible stars in that show. I think she is one of the standalones for me. She's incredible. Yeah.
I just love, hindsight something, and with First Contact celebrating its 30 year anniversary. You know, I look back and I think, well, there was Guinan, a black woman who was Picard's conscience, for, you know, I mean, fundamentally.
Yeah.
We have Lily Sloane, who like calls him out on his stuff, like hard. Like no one has ever addressed Picard in that way. Now, he's at a crossroads with himself, obviously, too, but she's not playing. Like, she's not taking any of it. And then I love that you see in Picard, you have the character of Rafi, who, I mean, the first time we see her, she pulls a phaser rifle out on the man. Like,
yes,
so I'm like, black women will put these captains
Picard in his place every time.
Every time.
Picard in line, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I am totally here for it, people. I absolutely endorse this.
Jodi, that's a great point, and it makes me think a lot about how, like, sometimes there's how do I want to word this? Like, it makes me kind of happy that Trek is consistently choosing like a person of color and a woman of color to like represent something that maybe Picard couldn't reach as like a white man, you know, that he can't even really grasp. And I think that like, as much as we want to say that Starfleet is no more racism, no more poverty, no more problems at all, ever, like that just can't be true. Obviously,
right.
They're still going to, and of course, this is a television show. So like, there's going to be the viewer bias and all of this stuff. And I kind of like that there's this idea that like, he can't see his full self by himself, you know, and he can't see the full situation by himself. Like he needs other people who have different perspectives and who have lived different lives to like kind of be like, hey, you're a little crazy right now.
I was thinking that the only people who talk to Picard this way are his family, like his brother. Like when we go back to the family episode, his brother is just like ruthless to him, and he's like, "Hey, bro," and you can tell like that's the family dynamic. Is they're very just like direct with each other, and I think Picard needs that in his life. Yeah.
And clearly always has, right? I mean, this was the family dynamic that he's always had, and obviously we learn about a lot of his trauma as a child in Picard, the series. So I think, it really does put Lily's role in this film and in her relationship with him into some perspective when we look at, you know, all of what we have information-wise from the shows and the movies on Picard. But yeah, I think obviously Black powerful women have played a role in Trek since day one. And they obviously were very influential and impactful in dealing with one of the most revered captains in the franchise. So, yes, more of them, please. More of them. Always. Yes, always. I want to talk a little bit just about the character of Lily Sloane. And that, you know, she comes across as practical and skeptical and funny and boldly unafraid. You know, like, I think a lot of that scene where she's first walking down the corridor of the Enterprise E and she's seeing Borg for the first time and she's like it's like she's in a house of horrors or something. Like she's like, what are these and what is going on? And but still isn't like totally panicked at that stage. Like she doesn't even realize she's on a ship at this stage. I mean, it was just so well played. And obviously that's huge kudos to Alfre Woodard again, who will probably say that a million more times. But yeah. But I wonder, you know, I think too, she was also that person dropped into an impossible situation. And that is something I feel like Trek does so well that we can relate to as an audience member. Like, oh, that's how I might feel, or how would I experience this if I were this person being dropped in? So I wonder what you think, or if you do think Lily plays a bit of a role as an audience surrogate, and if she does, what makes her such a strong one?
Yes. Okay. I was actually thinking about this, especially because like Data so helpfully gives us the exposition when the ship is like going back, it's like gone back in time and they're looking at Earth and they're like, oh no. And so Data reminds us that we're in the mid 21st century, 10 years after World War III. And so 10 years is not a long time. to be removed from a world war. And so I was actually thinking about Lily a lot through that perspective of she has just been, like, they've all been in war. I mean, to look at what they're living in on the ground, it's like reconstructed houses. Like, it's nothing like anything that we have today. It looks like kind of settlements that are like temporary is what they're living in. And so I'm imagining they went through a hell of a horrible situation. And so maybe Lily and Cochrane and everybody living down there are still kind of in this war mentality anyway. And so what a interesting character to put on the Enterprise in a war type situation where the Borg are there. And I think that in some circumstances that she did act as an audience member when like they're on the holodeck and Picard's, you know, they're having the good big goodbye reference, you know, for us fans, they're doing all the stuff. And then he's explaining when she's like, what the heck is that? I thought, you know, and he's explaining to her, like, for the benefit of if you didn't watch The Next Generation, here's what's going on. And I thought it was done very tastefully. It wasn't too much in your face. And I thought it was minimal. And for a character like hers that's just thrown into a situation like that, you kind of expect them to be like, hey, what does that mean? And she was just like shrieking at the Borg, but still like keeping her cool at the same time. So I just for that aspect, this, like, because I did a little watch through of this episode just to remind myself of all the Lily parts. And I just kept thinking about how they're only 10 years removed from World War III. Like,
right.
What's the psychological profile of these people, you know?
Right.
And there's not many humans left either.
No.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole rebuild there that's happening. And like you said, like referencing like how they were living and what structures they were living in. And yet they were still moving forward with trying to build the first warp capable ship. So it's just, there's just such a disjunct vibe to what they're dealing with, and I don't think you necessarily really get that as an audience, as a viewer, until you've seen it a few times to really see, like, oh, wait a minute, these things don't always go together. That's not really how we're used to seeing things. Like, post-war societies tend to have a little longer to go before science and things pick back up. But I think I agree with you, Ashlyn. I think it's just, she's a powerful character in these moments and dealing with a lot of things that don't become the forefront of the story right away. Yeah. What about for you, Rhianna?
Wow, great points all around. I think all I would add is that I think that she gets to still be like the quote unquote casual citizen removed from Cochrane enough. I really liked that she wasn't by Zefram's side the whole time. It wasn't sort of like she was his assistant, or that like she even played like a secretarial, like side character role to him. I liked that she was actually literally with the main character for most of the movie. That was really special. Yeah.
The first scene that we see back in time is her and Zeph next to each other.
Yes.
So in my mind, they're equals.
Partners. Yes. Yes, exactly, Ashlyn. And I think that to me, that's really important to how, particularly to how we look at other female side characters in movies, as Ashlyn so beautifully discussed with Gillian Taylor. And I'm thinking of so many other, even from like other time travel, like back in time sort of woman of the week, you know. I mean, she really stands alongside like Rain Robinson and Edith Keeler in this way of sort of being equals in science and equals in like intellect, more than just like Ashlyn said, someone that Kirk is like ready to bed and then bring to the future accidentally, you know.
Edith too.
He did bed her as well, but like he got the best of both worlds there.
He did,
but not Picard's best of both worlds.
I was like, you're triggering Picard.
Not that one. Yeah, sorry, buddy. But I do kind of like that she gets to be this like still kind of. I I also like that she gets to be scared, that like we talked about everything else about her being badass, and she's a woman of STEM, and she's been working so hard on the Phoenix and on looking towards a future in a time of like deeply, deeply post-war, or like, just like post-war trauma. Still to have any kind of positive attitude is insanely amazing. And also, I'd be screaming my lungs off too, girl. Like, same, I mean, I think that like, it's kind of nice that she also doesn't have to be super stoic either. And she can still kind of be like, have emotions, because I think that another thing that it's weird, because I think with a lot of like, particularly Black women, like tropes in either sci-fi or just like any kind of media, it's either like they like can have no emotions, and then that's how people will see them as like equal, quote unquote, or see people as like, oh, okay, like this person's valid or whatever. And I think it's such BS when like, yeah, I'd be screaming, and we all should be screaming about the Borg, and I kind of liked that as well, as she gets to show a range of feelings, and she gets to be tender in some moments and kind of brass in some others. And I do love the scenes when like Dr. Crusher is trying to be like, hey, you're okay, like everything's fine, and she's like, it's iconic. Yeah.
If you could serve looks, those were looks being served to Dr. Crusher in those moments. Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think a lot, too, about that scene where Picard shows her the view screen to look down at Earth, and that, she, is struck by, like, the kind of the spatial understanding and why she isn't flying through space, and, and he touches the force field that's protecting them. And, just like you see her go from fear and shock and awe to absolute wonder. And like she almost grounds herself in that moment that, okay, this is where I am. And it's a powerful scene. And I think it's so expressive. And I think that's just another, check in the kudos column for Alfre Woodard, because I feel that scene. It sticks in it's a core memory for me, because I felt what she was feeling. Like if I were in those shoes, I think that's how I would have reacted to, like, wait a minute, we should be hurling through space right now, like out this window. Why are we not? And I'm freaking out. Oh, this is cool. Okay, I'm good. Like that whole internal dialogue you just saw happen right there without her really saying too much. And it's powerful. I do think that she has become like an unforgettable character in the Trek, kind of universe of things. But do you look at her as one of the best one film characters? I know that we got a dose of Lily in Lower Decks episode there, which was fan-freaking-tastic.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Yes.
I mean, there were a lot of great cameos in that final season of Lower Decks, but Lily, come on, people.
That was one of the best ones.
That was really good.
Lily and T'Pol in the same episode. I was unwell. Yeah.
If you wanted two characters that you never thought you'd see together in a scene,
those are the two. Yeah,
those are it. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. Mm-hmm. But I do you think, I think of her as unforgettable. I think she's an unforgettable character, I think.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. When I think about standalone characters, some of the villains, like the Borg Queen in this movie, I mean, she's like maybe one of the best
show stealer.
Obviously, Khan, one of the best standout, and then of course I think even Chang, like from the Sixth Star Trek movie, like does a good job. Yeah. Like some of those villains are really good. I do love Carol Marcus in Wrath of Khan. I think she does a great job.
Yeah.
I think Lily is like above her though, but I also in Star Trek Beyond I love Jayla as well.
Jayla, my beloved.
I think she's a great character that is like, But overall, like she's more of a like side, like she's not as important to the plot, and Lily is literally entrenched with Picard in the heart of the Enterprise for a good chunk of this movie, and I was actually thinking that how hilarious is it? And I remember, I didn't remember this actually when I watched this movie again, but in the very beginning, after the Borg are like shooting at Earth, there's kind of like, everyone's like triggered on the ground. They're like, oh my God, we're getting shot at. They all think like it's the ships, they're back. And Lily's like, how the hell would they be back? Like what,
Right.
She immediately runs to the Phoenix and she's like, I have to go help and like make sure it's okay and protect it. And literally Zefram Cochrane, he slouches back and he says, fuck the Phoenix, like essentially. And he's like, I'm too drunk for this. Like, I'm good, whatever. Like he literally does not care. And so then in the movie, they're split up and Riker and crew and the rest of the Enterprise are dealing with Zefram Cochrane, who's just like, I don't want to be in this. And so, and that's what I love about the different dynamic then. So when we have this Picard and Lily moment up on the Enterprise, it's like they're just sharp together. And like when we see them in the holodeck, he just has to say a couple of words to her and she's quickly catching on. She's right with him. And I was thinking about all of the times, and there's, again, this is another like Niggle situation where there's like 3 or 4 times where Picard has like beamed up somebody from a planet who like shouldn't know about starships, and he's like opening up the world to show them, be like that's your planet. Like literally, I can think of a couple of episodes where he does this, like because they're in sickbay and they escape. You know what I mean? Like they love this trope, and I'm just like, Picard, this is what he normally does. This is how he calms down the people. But Lily, she reacted the best out of any of them.
Oh yeah,
right.
So she was meant to be in this adventure, I think.
Yes,
100%. I think a lot too about, I like to compare her relationship with Cochrane as a little bit similar to what Janeway had with Da Vinci. Do you know what I mean? Like he was the creative going off, flying off the seat of his pants with what idea, this idea, or what other harebrained scheme he had. And she was always kind of like trying to redirect him. And even though she wanted to be a part of it, she wanted to, but let's approach this and let's go down this lane rather than the lane you're headed. And I think I get a little that dynamic, like from Lily and Cochrane, like he's this aloof, creative scientist guy who got kind of forced into this, leadership role. And she's the one bringing everything back to reality, keeping things on task. And I think we see a little bit of that role with Picard then too, as she gets to know him a little bit better, at least catches on to what his vibe is. So,
yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking this too, and the more I thought about how connected they are, Cochrane and Lily, I was getting more and more frustrated at how there's no like Lily Sloane High School and there's no Lily Stone statue.
This is what I want to talk about. Yep.
And also, I mean, if this timeline is now complete where like, that means Lily also helped Picard not like die in, when they're fighting the Borg. So she has an important role in 2 critical moments of history. And yet she is seemingly not recognized in the future. And this is the story. Every history book that you open up, it's like, oh, somebody of color or was a woman or like some other thing helped this white man achieve something. And they're not remembered. Yes. So I thought it was also very timely with like that, maybe that period of I don't know, of spaceflight, but I was like, justice for Lily, come on.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And I think, obviously the temporal guardians of were probably like, no, none of this happened. We don't,
of course.
This is, they were all flipping out, like trying to correct everything. But I agree, like, if we know in the future they like erect statues to
Miles O'Brien, like they should at least have one for Lily Stone.
I mean, I appreciate the chief. I mean, he was
right, of course.
Like I'll give him this, but Lily,
she's out here doing so much.
Yeah, girl could use a statue in a school naming. I think at least.
I agree.
So, come on.
Yes.
She's earned it. She has well earned it. And I do think, this was film in the mid late 90s of, that was a different era in that regard. I mean, we maybe have not changed enough since then, but it would have been unfortunately, a different perspective on that. They wouldn't have, I don't know that would have come across in the writer's room, honestly.
But I think even the Star Trek lore that already existed was always about Cochrane. I mean, there's a TOS episode where they meet him and his weird alien wife on that planet,
Right.
That's canon.
I forgot. That's canon. That is
Metamorphosis,
canon. I think. Maybe. Maybe.
Who knows?
So.
Oh,
Ashlyn.
everybody
brought
go
something
watch
dark.
the episode. Yeah.
I mean, Cochrane's got a lot in store for him after this, but I don't know. So, I mean, there wasn't a Lily Sloane pre this, and so I think them including this badass, incredible actor in this movie is just Star Trek being Star Trek. It's let's throw this in.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily blame them, but they could have added to the canon after that, all of the new
right?
It's fine. It's all good.
I have to talk to Mike, my man, and get him to
exactly.
correct that in a comic or something coming out. We gotta
Truly,
right. We need that. I think, obviously, we're fans of Lily, but I think of all the things that she represents in this movie. I think she also has a representation of working humanity, and that there's something that's very rooted in a practical life and not idealizing things. And I think that comes from obviously the situation they're in, like we talked about, they're still in a post-war world that Earth is different. There's a lot yet to happen there in that environment. But I think she stays, very rooted in labor and survival and reality. I think that's her grounding for me, at least from my perspective. But what do you feel? Does she reveal something about class and labor in this movie? And does it help point towards the future of Trek storytelling in that representation? Because I feel her perspective is unique. She's a different type of character for our Trek films.
I mean, yes and yes. I feel like to these questions, I feel like she absolutely reveals a lot about class and labor post World War III, but also about what we look towards when we think of Star Trek, when we think of the future, when we think of Starfleet, so both on this level of fiction with Starfleet and the equality and the there is sort of an interesting, there's still a rank thing. So it is kind of cool that she gets to sort of defy Picard's rank and say whatever the hell she wants to him, which could be sort of interpreted as a classist kind of rank could be seen as classist in a way. But I still think that because she kind of gets to transcend these different variables, because she's not in Starfleet, she's from the past, she is absolutely not mincing her words, or nobody's got time in this era to be lying to others or to be sugarcoating. And so I feel like here also her having such an important role with the Phoenix's creation is super important to how we interpret first contact, if the Phoenix even getting off the ground, and I think there's a lot also to be said. Ashlyn, you kind of were talking about this earlier, but a lot to be said about sort of the women in the quote unquote background who actually get ships off the ground, in NASA and in, space institutions all around the world today and in the past and in the future. There are so many people who are involved in space flight, and of course the astronauts get the front and center, and that's how it is. It's always been that way with television, the actors get the front and center, and the production crew gets the long list of names in the credits, you know? And so similarly, I think that even though Lily was sort of lost in this long list of name in the credits, like as far as it comes to like the Phoenix's actual flight, the warp drive, because it wasn't just her and Zefram either. It was a whole team of engineers and scientists and people who were actually looking for something better in a world that was literally coming out of the most devastating war of all time, and like still chose hope and still chose to look towards the stars. And I think that like that really does say a lot. And I think that she is representing both the women, particularly women of color, who are lost in that just like immense amount of people who go behind a space flight, but also she represents someone who gets to space and who gets to be kind of front and center, despite her being this like quote unquote secondary role, or someone who wasn't going to get on the Phoenix. She's like, hell no, you know? And so I kind of love that she gets to represent both of those things at once.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as you were saying that, I was kind of going through like the history major in me was starting to go through like all the past eras and thinking of like all these classes that were underserved or were the working poor, or even going back to the slavery. It was about hope that moved people forward, right?
Yes.
Like there was something, a group of people or a movement of people that helped move us hopefully beyond. And like that idea is so core to Trek, that obviously with hope, right? We always hear people talking about hope related to Trek, but I think Lily, at least for me, she had that hope and she represents that, but she's also very real. And that I think that, you know, where Guinan and Picard, like she was very measured in the way she approached him at times, a lot of the time, at least what we saw of her on screen, right? But I think with Lily, she was just like, no, I'm not putting up with any of this man's shenanigans. I am not putting up with this is about what's the best we can do right now in this moment, right?
Oh, I mean, and if you think about, like, how many times has she had this kind of conversation with Cochrane? Maybe not about, like, revenge, but, like, you know, like, how many times is Cochrane like, I'm not doing that on the project? And she's like, yes, you freaking are, because it's what makes sense. Like, I think this is her natural, like, the way they, like, the way that
they're dynamic.
She's already been working with him, and so I think it naturally, she sees another white dude who's just, like, really, like, confused and making, like, on the wrong path, and she's like, dude, you need to get in this escape pod.
Yes,
like, get out. Yes.
I was also thinking that, like, in my world, I'm an opera singer at night, and it, like, the director of the show is probably the most important person, but they only bow on opening night is the tradition, and after that they usually leave the production, or they don't stay for the rest of the run unless they, you know, have a connection or something. And I think Lily is kind of like maybe actually the director of this entire kind of situation. And like she you know, she doesn't necessarily take her bow, but like her name's on the project at least.
Yeah. Well, and everybody knows her. And I bet everybody in that settlement that they've created has a moment or a relationship with her in some way.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it seems like a small,
it does, but I mean, but still, like, I think with what they were trying to achieve, right, in that, and putting that first warp-capable ship up, like, that's no small feat. That's high thinking, structural, science-y things happening there. And I think she, like with Picard, she finds a way to make things personal for the individual. And I think that is what connects us to her more, right? Is that we can see ourselves standing next to her and having a conversation, or, you know, we have relating actions or feelings to her that feel very real. And I think that's powerful. And we didn't get to see a lot of that in the series. Like, we didn't see a lot of that in TNG. We didn't see a lot of that in the original series. And I don't know that we really saw a lot of that from what would be considered like a non-main Star Trek character. I don't know that we saw that a lot. I think we start to see it more in the new era of Trek, where some of these guest roles or shorter period roles on the series would, take some prominence. But I think Lily set a high bar.
Yes.
She's funny too. She has some one-liners. Like, oh, it's my first ray gun, Right? Or right? After the Borg sounds Swedish. Like, they're great lines.
That is one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Like, we need that on a t-shirt, right? Like,
Yes.
It calls Picard like dicks.
Dicks,
Like, she's just
fun.
So grounded. I don't know how.
I don't know either.
Incredible.
She's managed. I think she needed to be, right? Like,
yeah.
Product of the circumstance, maybe. I think, we talked about it. We danced around this idea a little bit, but why is it important that she's not dazzled into science? Like, she's not, when she's on the Enterprise E and she's facing the Borg and seeing all this technology and all the things she's experiencing, there's still, like, she may have a moment like, oh, I'm looking down at Earth. I'm not falling out of a ship. Oh, there's Borg. What are they, Swedish? I don't understand, but they look scary. But she's never just quiet about it. She doesn't become that typical scared female in a movie and lets the guys take charge and get us out of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's that moment where she goes after Picard, kind of, I think after Picard's talking to Worf on the bridge and they have that fight, she just goes right after him, and she's always kind of following him into danger. And I think that a part of her is probably like, oh man, like, I gotta take care of this fool. Like, he's got some issues, and it really shows, of course, her like empathy and emotional intelligence in the situation to be able to read the room very quickly. And I think when anyone is in a high pressure war zone for most of their lives, I mean, I don't know how old Lily's supposed to be in this movie, but like, we can guess that she's been through war like probably most of her life. And so it makes sense that like she has a lot of trauma coping skills that she would kind of utilize in this situation, and probably why, besides the weird fainting she does when Data, I thought that was a little,
but Crusher did say she had radiation poisoning.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Yeah, it wasn't like a damsel faint. Okay, that helps me. Yeah,
I was pissed. I was like, why did she faint after seeing Data? And then Crusher's like, oh, she's irradiated.
Yeah, okay,
so
fair enough. Yeah. I would faint
so
too.
They gave her a reason to faint.
Yes,
it wasn't just like, oh, she fainted because she's
a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that really stood out to me too was, like you said that you set up the whole scene perfectly, Jodi. Like, they're on the holodeck, the Borg are like, they're trying to dance, but they might be getting shot at and all this stuff. And after that, when Picard is actually able to mow down the Borg, and he takes down everybody in that room, she stops him from like hitting him with the butt of the gun. So like, already she can tell this man's out of control. And then when he is just like very serious, he's locked in, he's trying to figure out, maybe if I can get this Borg nanoprobe, I can figure out what their instructions were, and I can like figure out what's going on. And she's like, this was one of your men. Like, as if I have to break this to you, Jean-Luc. Like, this is your crewman. And he's like, yes, Ensign Lynch. Like, what a shame. And she's like, tough luck. And she's just watching him the entire time. And like, alarmed, I think. She's not showing it. She's just like, whoa, because he's not having any emotion to losing Ensign Lynch. And that's what she brings up later at the end, to be like, wow, like, you're really at this point where, and I mean, from a Star Trek perspective, I am totally with Picard. He's like, we don't have time to mourn.
For this red shirt, yeah.
Right. Like, I'm the same. I'm with Picard. But I get Lily's perspective being like, wow, he's so far removed. He's not even mourning this ensign, this innocent dude.
I do wonder, too, Ashlyn, if it's she's thinking he's so far removed, but maybe she's also recognizing his own trauma response, and maybe she went through something similar, you know, like I could see it also her being like, oh, you're a soldier. Like, I see that in you now. I see the detachment you're trying to create here because we've all had to create it, you know, in the situation she lived in with the war. I feel like it could make a lot of sense to her and why she kind of understands Picard so much enough to get in his head and to, you know, talk about his whole trauma with him that no one else can even, like, is too afraid to touch. I think there's a little bit of that, like, soldier recognizing soldier there as well. I noticed in that scene with the holodeck particularly. I mean, also she's like mowing down Borg with the like ice bucket, you know. I'm like, okay, badass. That's awesome. Right. I thought that it could be both, you know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, because she, the way she reacts or, you know, is clocking what Picard is going through in that holodeck scene. I have to feel like at some level she's had to do the same thing with Cochrane, because he's a bit of a loose cannon. Yeah, he's drinking when he's not doing something he's supposed to be doing, you know, or maybe when he's supposed to be doing, you know. But like, I think she's used to dealing with these men who aren't dealing with their emotions or the importance of a particular situation in that moment. So, and I wonder if that, you know, she's just like, instinct is kind of kicking in for her. Like, this is a familiar process. You're just from the future. You know, like I've dealt with you guys before, literally.
Totally.
Right? I get like so annoyed at all the times that they break the Prime Directive. But then honestly, the Vulcans arrive like 3 days after.
So it's fine.
So it literally doesn't matter. And I was like, wow, I shouldn't have been so angry about this. I mean, it's like, how could Data just jump down and shit? Like, that's outrageous. But no, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay.
As we've learned throughout all of Star Trek, the Prime Directive is multiple.
It's wishy-washy. Temporal Prime Directive, all of that.
All of them.
Oh, it's messy. Yeah.
I mean, just watch Voyager seasons 1 through 7 and you can find out
you betcha.
how loose the Prime Directive can get. So, do you think that Lily helps make the Federation feel more real by challenging it? Does she push on the ideals of the Federation so much that you're like, no, this is worth defending, or this is worth keeping, even if we do have to zigzag a little bit around the foundations of the Federation?
I think she questions a lot of the rank, and sort of, especially after the fight with Worf, and she's questioning more of, like, I guess sort of, for me, I think that, of course, there's sometimes in TOS and TNG where the Federation is a little iffy and you're like, oh, okay, that's really a rule, or right. But it's not like overtly stated in a way of like, hey, this is weird, or like, hey, we should challenge this. And I think that she was like ahead of her time, basically, like already kind of adhering to a Deep Space Nine mentality of Starfleet, where things should be questioned and things should be at least scrutinized. And what I love so much about Lily, too, is her curiosity. I mean, throughout, you know, she asks right away about the Federation, how many planets, like that kind of thing. She's curious about the future, but skeptical, you know, and I think that that's kind of a good place to be with the Federation, is curious and skeptical, because there's a lot that can be improved upon. And I think that it kind of reminds me of Akira and Nerys, like a way of looking at the Federation where, you know, maybe Kira's a little more pissed off, understandably, with everything that the Federation's doing at Deep Space Nine in the beginning. But I do think that they provide both a good, like, a good way for the audience to sort of go, oh yeah, wait, you know, just have that like step back and be like, wait, good point, you know. So I do kind of, I like that she's kind of ushering in a new era of Trek where we can start to question things a little bit more. And even some of the movies, we won't really at TNG much, but sort of, you know, we have a little bit of that questioning. And then of course, once we get into Deep Space Nine. Yeah. Right. Insurrection's a huge one. That's a great point. Sketchy. Yeah. Very sketchy admirals in that one. Yeah.
Yes. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking of the scene where they're walking down the corridors, Lily and Picard, and she's asking him about money. And
that's right.
The whole, like, what do you mean you don't have money? Like, and he goes off into his, like, very Federation Star Trek explanation of it. And she's just like, it's unfathomable to her that this is a construct of the future, that, like, how can that even be? And I think the way that she reacts is like how we react when we find out, like, what do you mean they don't have money?
How does that even work?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, then you meet Quark and you understand things, but I mean, right? But yeah, I think it's just, she gave us a perspective that I think we hadn't had before as viewers.
Yes. I really got the sense that she was, and I think the movie was wanting us to see, like, her questioning the utopia for me, like, especially, so, like, that is one part that you mentioned for sure, where how you don't get paid, you know, like, what do you mean?
Yes.
But then also at the end, and this scene really stuck out to me, of course, like, the line must be drawn here, like, their whole fight in the ready room. But when Picard is, like, polishing his gun, he's recalibrating it for the next fight, and he literally says, like, in the same line, did I write it down? He's like, we have an evolved sensibility. We do not seek revenge for revenge's sake, is literally what he's saying as he's, like, recalibrating the phaser. And she's like, are you kidding me? You know, like,
look at yourself.
And so I think that, like, and her mentioning Ahab and the whale.
Oh, that got Picard so good.
That's all she needed to say. And then she was like, oh no, I'm Ahab. And he could not recover after that. But no. I really, that was really the sense I got is, and I think it's good. We should question the utopia because like, are you sure that humans haven't evolved? Like, you know, how can you, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, the most, like, sturdy Starfleet captain of all, how can you say that you know, you know about Kirk and Khan, how could you say this to me? But anyway,
that's, like, a great point.
I just think it's, I just thought that scene was really cool. And I mean, how many times have we seen a Starfleet ship get to a planet that they think is utopia and there's some other terrible thing going on? And if we think that we have the utopia and we're not addressing, like, that I'm holding a phaser ready to go kill the people who hurt me earlier, we're at an impasse. So I think that part, like, Lily is essential for this. Yeah.
Well, I think also you bring up a great point. Like, it reminds me of the episodes like Justice, where the one where Wesley's going to get executed for running on the grass and knocking over some plants. Picard has this really great discussion with the leader of the Edo culture, who basically, you know, Picard's like, well, we don't execute people anymore in our utopia. And he's like, wow, how evolved of you. Sorry, we're just, like, little peasants to your, like, great utopia. Sorry, we're not as evolved. And he's, like, super sassy and sarcastic. And I love it because, like, I think it sort of puts in Picard's face kind of unrealistic expectations that Picard also puts on everyone else, while sometimes being a hypocrite himself, you know, because he's human and he's flawed, and like he absolutely will have times where he's gonna let someone die because of the Prime Directive, or he's gonna let himself fall into a revenge plot because he's traumatized, you know. Like, I think that you bring up a great point here. And I also, just as a fun fact, my wife 100% agrees with Lily Sloane in this movie. We watched First Contact a couple of years ago, and she was like, because she's asked me for years, she's like, are you telling me everyone does this for like no money? And I'm like, yeah, they do it for the joy of exploration. And like, isn't it amazing to imagine a society without like capitalism? And she's like, yeah, capitalism sucks, but like, I'm not doing that for free. Are you kidding me? She'll be like, And so when she saw Lily in this scene being like, no money, it means you don't get paid, she was like, exactly. She was like, period. And so I love that we've got other people agreeing with Lily, because I'm over here like Picard, like, no, but their life is better than ours, and like they're evolved. And she's like, how evolved can you be if you don't even get compensated for like doing a great job? So like, I was like, you know what? I mean, you make me think. So, thank you for being the Lily to my Picard.
Oh, I love it. It's true though. I mean, and I do think we have a hard time because we are it's our culture, it's our society, right? Like, this is how we are. This is how we exist. This is how we've been taught and trained and all the things. So, and I think, I don't know, maybe I studied as a musician, right? So nice. I think there's something about that creative mentality where the payoff is in what you have done. Yes. And so that, to me, there's my Starfleet. Like, there's my connection. Like, that does exist. Now, musicians need to get paid because we have to live, right? So there's that part to it. And we prefer to get paid, obviously, in this current century and time. But there is that part of it. Like, you don't spend the hours studying and practicing and rehearsing, you know, that there's no monetary thing that's going to compare to that as in that way. So I guess that's just how I connect to the whole Starfleet idealism, that I think it does exist in ways in our current society. Yeah. But it's not what we lead with. It's not our founding principle at this time, but
the passion exists.
It does. It does. And the desire to achieve for yourself.
Yes.
And to benefit others.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I just would say, like, your performance is something that, yes, you do to the best of your ability to test and push your boundaries and strengths and skills, but it's also then something that is given to those that get to view it or hear it or experience it. And I think that is something we don't see a lot of in the corporate world, right? We don't see that in that way. So
yes,
I don't know. That's
and like
2 cents.
Totally. In a very nerdy way too, it makes me think about writing fan fiction. Like,
absolutely.
I'm working on this fan fiction that's like, I think 118,000 words at this point, and it still has like a good quarter of a way to go. So I'm like writing a really long novel that will never get published in like the big publishing world, even though I want to be a published author and like all of this kind of stuff. But I would rather spend my time writing about my fictional characters that I love and hyperfixate over, because like, I just want to share it with people who also enjoy those fictional characters. And I'm going to post it on AO3 one day and it'll be great. And I can, you know, fall into the praise of the AO3 people. Right. But it's about the craft, and it's about doing it because you love it. And that is so pure. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And really quick, while we're on this money train, I was just thinking about that quote that Cochrane says in here, where he says, like, do you know what my vision is? Dollar signs, money. I didn't build this ship to usher in a new era for humanity. You think I want to go to the stars? I don't even like to fly. I like trains. I built this ship so that I could retire on some tropical island filled with naked women. That's Zefram Cochrane. That's his vision. This other guy you keep talking about, this historical figure, I've never met him. I can't imagine that I ever will. That's capitalism.
That's
capitalism
at its core. And I think that's why I feel like Lily so much represents the working person, the working culture of our societies as a whole. But then there's Cochrane, who's like, I'm in this for me. This is I'm doing this for me. And to see, like, we get that contrast in this film, that here's the utopian future. They're still flawed humans and people and species here. However, we aren't entrenched in that selfish, self-fulfilling needs to that extent. And I think there's that's what we are as viewers, right? We're looking at Star Trek as we still got to go to work. We got earn a paycheck. We got to pay the bills. But yet I want that. I want to be able to do things to do them and to help others and be. So maybe that's idealistic. Sure. Fine. I don't care. It's what I want.
Great.
Just what I want people.
Exactly. Well, I think,
I don't want to be Cochrane.
And
until we have a CEO of passion,
I love that. Yep.
It's not going to happen. You know, it's because our society is oriented like Ferenginar. So
no, truly, like we are on Ferenginar, basically. Yeah. And I think even Cochrane and Lily represent a different type of capitalism too, because Cochrane is out here trying to get naked women and fame, and Lily just can't even imagine a world where you get to do what you love just because you love it. And she like imagines a world where you have to be compensated because money is like all you can hope for, you know, is kind of the way that I interpreted that scene. So even Cochrane and her have a different viewpoint on that. Yeah.
I have seen memes of people pointing out, or just like on Star Trek fan pages, that Zefram Cochrane and Lily, like this generation, are all Generation Ys. So they're like our college student, like high schoolers, college students right now going through school. And so it just kind of makes a lot of sense. Like it's like, it kind of fits that Zoomer generation.
Oh, it's interesting.
That late stage capitalism generation.
I have a niece and nephew that are graduating high school this year, and I'm like,
hopefully they don't experience the World War.
Let's all hope that we meet the Vulcans first.
I'm going to knock on every piece of wood I can find in this place. I'm going to cross my fingers. Seriously. Oh, well, so this is a good transition into the famous Lily and Picard confrontation, which, I mean, my gosh, if that's not it's a movie moment. It's a Star Trek moment. It is all the things, and it's a defining moment in the film, obviously. But I think, like we talked about earlier, how she sees his obsession very clearly with with wanting to get revenge, essentially, is what he's doing, and that it is something that she's just like, she sees him as a person seeking revenge and is obsessed by getting that. And she doesn't see the rank or doesn't see the hierarchy and doesn't have any respect really for that. She sees him as a person and she wants to fix this situation. Right. And she, I think, does a great job as a character forcing the movie to name those things: revenge and pride and denial. And we don't get that a lot in Trek at that level. I mean, we get hinted at it, but I mean, obviously we've been locked into these 45-minute episodes of Trek, and the movies. The movies before that would probably hint at those things. I mean, obviously we could talk about Khan and in that situation, there's definitely some revenge and pride and denial happening. But I think Lily as a character, she's a moral pivot in First Contact. So I guess my first question would be, was Lily the right person to confront Picard?
Oh my gosh, this is what I've been thinking about. I'm sorry, I had to jump in before
No, please.
This is what I've been thinking about the entire time, because I am such a Bev Crusher fan, and I think she gets annihilated in the movies. I think, oh my gosh, that insurrection lady should have been Bev. As much as I adore Lily in this movie, I think it should have been Beverly Crusher who talks Picard out of this, because who's the person on Next Generation who is never afraid to be straight up with Picard? And we've seen a lot of even Prime Directive situations where Picard's like, well, we have to let the man die because of it's the right rule. And she's like, that is effing ridiculous, Picard. You know, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, she's never afraid. And we've seen 7 years of this. And so that's my only complaint about just the balance of writing in these. I mean, in all of the Next Generation movies, I don't think the cast is like, you know, like utilized as well as they could, because this is kind of a Picard movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, as much as we have like the fun going on, you know, on Earth, and, you know, Troy's
Riker's like barely in this.
He
was too busy directing, right? Like,
that's true. Yeah, fair enough.
He had his hands full.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I wish that Picard and Crusher had any kind of moment in these movies. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. What's going on with Crusher? Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, talk about a character that's completely underutilized, and obviously it happens a lot. It happened a lot in TNG, happened a lot in the films. In this film, especially, my gosh. Like, but yes, I think if it wasn't going to be Lily Sloane, it had to have been Bev. Like,
it had to.
Had to.
Yeah.
I think we saw Worf poke the bear of Picard, like, kind of be like, sir, let's get, you know, but that didn't go well. But Worf has always been kind of that person, right? Like, he's always been the, no, we should kill them all, or no, maybe we shouldn't kill them. Yeah. Yes, but Captain. Yes, that's
exactly that's his thing.
Poor Worf right there. That deep voice, but yeah.
Yes. No, I agree. And I think that, like, if Bev or Worf weren't confined by the constraints of the hierarchy of command here, I think that they would have absolutely gone into his quarter or his ready room and watched him, you know, break his little ships. Like, I think that it would have been an absolutely amazing, like if Bev, who was like, you know, from Picard season 3, Bev, like, absolutely, you know, she would tear him a new one. Yeah. But I think the constraints of Picard still being the captain here, and of them being so Starfleet, like, you know, we joke about Worf, you know, and how he of course has, like, he's gonna say, you know, Captain what, but he'll be like, that's an order, Worf, and then he'll just be like, you know, I mean, I think that's the same with Bev. Yeah. And so I think that truly, even though it's unfortunate for Bev's character, Lily had to be the outsider who comes in and calls BS and is like, she calls him, you son of a bitch, you know, like, right as they get into his ready room, or the, and like, I love that Picard is like, this isn't the time. Like, you can't be cursing at me right now. I'm stressed. And
whatever. Yeah.
Which is also funny, because they always have emotional moments when it's the most, like, climactic part of the movie. I'm like, what do you mean this isn't the time? This is the perfect time. But, like, I like that Picard says to her, the crew is accustomed to following my orders, and Lily says they're probably accustomed to your orders making sense, you know. And I think that she brings up a great point here, that she even if she's still going to call out Picard's BS, but she at least understands that, like, he normally is probably a really good captain. Like, she's seen enough of him at this point, even though she's seen mostly triggered Picard, who is like very unsettled, very much kind of going off half-cocked here. Like, she still sees him and his integrity, and she sees how he interacts with the crew. And I think that, like, understands enough to be like, your orders probably usually make sense, but this is insane, you know? Yeah. And I think that truly she can kind of, as a civilian role, be that only role who can really tackle this and like I said earlier, the trauma bonding of both being soldiers here, I think is pretty deep, and it's pretty like entrenched in both of them enough to understand each other and to confront each other.
Yeah. I think too, like, I think you both nailed it with the hierarchy of Starfleet, because in that situation, if Bev had been that person, what's she going to do? Break out a hypospray and like tone him down? Yeah. Like, because like, I don't know that maybe like if the badass Bev we saw in Picard season 3, if that had been a little present in her character, then maybe she would have confronted him more. But yeah, I think they were just too bound to duty and respect, maybe even.
I thought it was interesting, and I know different situation, but I couldn't help thinking about in Search for Spock when they're given the choice of like, okay, the Klingons have taken over the ship. What choice does Kirk make? He evacuates the ship with his crew, and they explode the Enterprise. And in this situation, I understand because they're back in time. It's like, if we explode the Enterprise, we're not going back to our timeline. That is different. But I thought it was interesting to see Picard faced with a pretty freaking, besides the time travel, like pretty similar situation. And he's like, no, like we are staying on here and we are figuring this out. We cannot let the ship go at all costs. And Lily's like, blow up the damn ship. Are you kidding me? So it was interesting to see that parallel. And he was just like, he just needed somebody to snap him out of it. And
he did.
I think the rank would be really confining. I do think like if the crews were different, like Riker, he could have thrown a low-key mutiny and like been like, hey, let's get the hype. I'll get the hypo spray, you know, or data, we grab the hypo spray, you know, like
He would have been like, Captain, you're malfunctioning off, you know, like
I feel like that's in that situation. Like, I don't know who else would be able to go against Frank, but thank God for Lily. Yeah.
Right? It's powerful. And I think her perspective on it is unique to anything we've seen before, just simply because Picard's not ever been confronted in that way before. I mean, he's been challenged. He's been put in perilous situations, you know, with the Borg Queen. I mean, where he didn't have autonomy or choice. But yeah, I think we needed Lily in that moment, and I think he needed Lily in that moment too. Do you think Lily sees something in Picard that others miss or maybe avoid?
100%. 100%. Like seeing the soldier in him, but also seeing I think she has this line where she talks about, like, I've seen men enjoy the thrill of murdering someone. You know, you're not the first man to get a thrill from murdering someone. I see it all the time, she says. And I think that, like, she understands how both trauma and like a war scenario, or like when you're kind of stripped of like your basic rights or your basic humanity, like he was, and like Lily was with World War III, Picard was with the Borg. I think that she understands how that can kind of make you just, of course, want to enact revenge or want to kind of adhere to those basic instincts of, well, they hurt me, I'm going to hurt them back, as she says, you know. And I think that's really powerful because even though she wasn't assimilated by the Borg, she dealt with her real handful of trauma here and clawed herself out just like Picard did. And I think they both still feel the ramifications of that. But Lily is smart enough to call it out and call out his BS enough call out his BS and sort of also saying, I recognize this in you, because it was probably once in her as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, the fact that she doesn't, like, she's very selfless, because I think, I'm sure part of her motivation is like, I'm on this ship and I don't want to explode, but she doesn't say that ever. She never says like, well, you at least need to eject me in this escape pod. Like,
true.
Never. And how many time travel episodes do we have where the people are like, I need a GTFO right here. Like,
right. Right.
So it's interesting that she is just like locked in, and she understands the stakes very quickly of like, oh my gosh, the Borg are here, they're gonna assimilate. Like, I don't want this happening to my planet too. Let's eradicate them like bugs on the ship. That sounds awesome. And then we can all go home safe. So I think that's interesting too. Like, she's not doing it from a selfish angle at all. She's genuinely talking to Picard because she's trying to get through to him.
Yes.
She lets him yell, break his little ships, waits till he's done basically throwing the tantrum, and then she's like, okay, so are we going to explode the ship? What? Come on, like, let's do this. So she deals with them very well.
Yeah. She never plays the damsel in distress. Mm-mm. She never needs rescuing. Right? Like, yeah. And I think that's powerful, because especially for a non-main character in the series and in the films, like, this is someone brand new to us. And a civilian at that, of all things.
Fits right in. Yeah.
Doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Doesn't miss a beat. So she very much so, I think, she represents a lot to me of just an understanding of basic humanism. Like, she understands people. Whether she wants to admit that at all or not, like would they say, "Oh, she's the person that gets everyone"? Like, she would put definite blockade, I think, around herself for that. But I do think she gets and clocks people pretty quick, and I think that's just who she is. And we don't get to see that a lot in Trek. From a non-main character or non-bridge crew member all the time. So
sure.
I appreciate her for that. And I do think, like, this has got to be one of the best the captain gets called out scenes in all of Trek, because, first of all, we're not used to seeing Picard have such a emotional and visceral reaction. Like, he's always Mr. Stoic. We obviously know that post, being Borgified, that he dealt with things and had that trauma, was still dealing with, and the trauma of the whole, battle at Wolf 359, like, all of that loss, like, weighs on him as a human. But we never see him completely lose it. Like, he does, and it escalates as this movie gets to that point, to that Ready Room scene. We see it in the holodeck. We, see it in the way he deals with Worf. It's just, it's building, and that tension, internal tension and temperature of him is escalating the whole film. And I don't know that we've ever seen it. We'd never see it before in Picard. We didn't really ever see it in Kirk ever either. I mean, he would have his outburst or his, angry rage moments.
He crashes out sometimes,
Yes. Yes. The Shatner anger. I love that.
Two fists in the air.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you search for pictures of Shatner, as Kirk, you get that one comes up a lot.
Shaking the fist.
Or the two jazz
hands.
I mean, talk about a core, like, visual to associate with a character. I love it.
Picard, if he's losing it, it's because, like, there's been an injustice done on his ship. It's like his drumhead, and he doesn't really lose it during drumhead, but it's like, my officer is sentient, like, like, I lived a life in a light, he's crashing out because it's like a justified, like, he's standing up for something. But in this way, no, not in this movie. And
Nah.
and that's something I think that is so cool. I mean, we do have that moment in Generations where he finds out that his nephew dies in the fire, and he's like crying with Troy, and that. I mean, like, I'm such a fan of whenever the movies are able to give us new emotions that we haven't seen with characters that we've known for 7 years, 7 seasons. And I know that's, I mean, after reading Making It So, that Patrick Stewart's autobiography, he talked about that. And that's why he was very reluctant to take on Picard in the first place, because he didn't want to keep redoing the same thing over and over again. Yeah. And in First Contact, this is not the Picard that we know. This is a traumatized Picard, and he needed someone to snap him out of it. And
it was a well-timed moment for Picard in his character arc, right? I think we, like you said, we hadn't seen this out of him before, and he needed something to push him, beyond where he had been sitting with his trauma and anger and all of that. But I do think, like, were there other people that could have pushed the button for him and helped him get out of it? Sure. Could they have done it as effectively as Lily did? I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't think so.
Especially not if they didn't mention Moby Dick.
Right.
That really was a clincher for him.
Talk about seeing someone like click. Like, wow. It's a powerful scene.
And it took a couple minutes. The Moby Dick was like loading in him because she references it. And then like a couple minutes go by. And by the end of the scene, he's like whispering like lines to himself. And she's like, oh, I never read it. Like, I don't
love
know.
that too.
Complete dismissal of something he holds. Completely sacred. And it's
iconic.
It's iconic. And it's one of those scenes where I feel like everybody knows it, everybody references it, but I don't know that we revere it enough as a fandom.
No,
like,
it's true. Yeah,
it should be kind of hung up there with all of the other great moments. And
Quark did quote it, in the ending of, or close to the end of Deep Space Nine. So that was great.
Right. And no
father. Epic, absolutely epic. So before we go into the next section, just a little fun, interesting question for you. But what Trek captain do you think would best respond to being called out? And which one would absolutely be like, I need a minute before I say anything to you?
I think firstly we've seen Janeway be called out by the entire bridge crew in Night. When she's like, everyone go, and I'm gonna just take a shuttle pod and I'll just meet you at Earth at some point in my life. And they're like, no, we're mutinying. And she's like, okay, I'm calm now.
Fine.
I think that she trusts her crew enough to know that if they're about to mutiny because her idea is so bad, that's on her. It's kind of she's kind of the teacher who's like, if the whole class is failing, that's on me.
That's on me. Yeah.
And I think that she would absolutely take that fine. I mean, Kirk always crashes out when he's called out, or when there's even a hint of a mutiny. Ashlyn and I always have that meme going around, in our we just back and forth to each other, just go mutiny, because he just freaks the hell out whenever there's a mutiny, even whisper. I think because he has more of this belief in himself that he is wants to always follow the right path. And I think he'd be okay being called out by Spock or McCoy. But if it were a rando, kind of quote unquote, for him, a rando,
right?
It would be, I think, really tricky for him to he would definitely need a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, because we've been talking about Lower Decks a lot, I think Captain Freeman, she struggles
that's a good one.
With direct feedback sometimes. And sometimes when she receives it, she crashes out and she causes more trouble for the whole crew.
Micromanaging!
That's exactly
That's what I got on my review.
Yeah.
You kind of see where Mariner gets some of her crazy, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, 100%.
I think
Ashlyn, that's brilliant.
She wants to be perfect, and the fact that she is human just outrages her.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Exactly.
It's hard to say otherwise. Like, I really agree with you. I think Kirk wouldn't take it well. Janeway would take it well. I think Cisco, it depends on the situation with
And
him.
who it is coming from.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's coming from Eddington, he's like, I will snap.
He will
like,
blow the ship up.
Yeah.
He will blow it up.
But if
He
it's
does
like,
not care.
if it's Kira or Worf, he's like, well,
Right.
I guess.
Guess,
You know?
yeah.
yeah.
I feel the only one, like, I feel like that his Lily is Jadzia.
Yes, 100%.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Dax could call him out and
And she has
Yes.
so many times.
so many
Yeah.
times to his benefit, most
Yes.
always. So I think, I agree. Janeway was the first one I thought of because she literally, if it's not on the bridge, it's like
Yeah.
them individually confronting her in her ready room. Like
Totally.
they were not afraid to they were respectful. You know, going to her in her ready room and tell no, we're all going to mutiny. You've gone too far.
I mean,
Exactly.
some episodes, it's like there's a line outside of our ready room being
Always.
like, I disagree. I also disagree.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like a revolving door for
Totally.
questioning
Especially
Janeway.
Chakotay and Tuvok are
Tuvok.
usually first to light up.
Yes. And they're always shocked that they're on the same page.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
I think that it would have been interesting to see a character like Lily in every era of Trek at some
Yeah.
point, right? To see how that dynamic worked with our other crew and captains.
You
and,
know, I was actually thinking about Book and Michael, and I think that they're as close as we get in New Trek as someone who's a civilian and who doesn't really subscribe to a lot of Starfleet ideals. And even to a point where Michael's even iffy on Starfleet for a while after she spends that year with him without Starfleet, and finds her way back. And Book is kind of, and even of course they have their own fights about the 10C and
Right.
I think that they both provide a little bit of that outsider's perspective on for each other. They're both kind of the Lilies and sometimes the Picards in those situations, but besides Book, I think he's kind of the strongest candidate for that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I like that. That works. And it's true. That's very much so their dynamic, especially in that year they had away from.
Yeah.
Right? That was
Right.
fun. Yeah.
I think Pike would take it really well. He would be like, "Oh,
yeah.
thank you for the feedback. I will not explode the ship. You're right. I was
right.
tripping." Yeah.
I do
He's
feel
very
like
receptive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Una is a little bit of Lily, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. She'll tell it like it is. Yeah.
She is she plays the role, she plays her duty, her hierarchy, she plays that well, but she's not afraid to be okay, they just walked out, now let's really have a conversation.
Yeah.
about
Let's
this
get down to
because-
this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do see that, but he's very much so he'll listen to anyone and everyone and
Tell me your thoughts. Yeah. for
yes,
sure.
yeah. Which that's a unique captaining style in the whole realm of Trek too. That's a whole series, right? Right there is just
Truly.
captains and the way they lead.
That's
Yeah.
a whole. That's
Can't wait to do our Captain series. Yeah.
yes,
That's a 7-hour discussion right
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. I think this was kind of my most fun section to talk about and think about, but it's about meeting the future without worshiping it. And I think we see a lot of that in Trek, don't we? That we, boldly go and always moving forward and I think even as viewers, as the outsiders looking in, we look at it and think, we do worship it a little bit because we want to see us move in that direction or to be in that world. But I think I like that Lily doesn't assume that advanced means better. And I think we get that with the Borg, right? They're the embodiment of that idea. And
Brilliant.
I like,
Yeah.
yeah, right. I think that there's Lily very quickly clocks the inconsistency and the hypocrisy of situations and of what's transpiring in front of her. But she asks the practical things. And she keeps Picard honest, but I think she keeps Trek honest too. And so I wonder, did First Contact need Lily in order to critique itself? To kind of keep us in check as Star Trek?
I think so. I think definitely having, not only is she a civilian, which is as we've talked about this whole episode, we don't have very many civilians in Starfleet. And she's also someone from the past. She's 300 years removed from Picard. Right. And I think that this movie couldn't have been done without a very solid character from the past. We have Zefram Cochrane, but he wasn't enough. Yeah. And for them to do both of these plot lines satisfyingly, if you want to have Picard have an arc and you want to explore, talking about romanticizing the future with poor Jodi and harassing Zefram Cochrane while he's trying to pee and it's just but anyway, I do think that
Barclay, he couldn't even form a sentence. He was so starstruck.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Even Riker, all of them. Yeah.
All of them.
I just think that it's so important to have that perspective. I just think it's good. It mixes things up. We've heard what our bridge crew has to say 1,000 times at this point,
Right. I like that they gave us a surprise with the way with Kirk finally confronting the human side of him and dealing with the trauma and the emotions and everything he was carrying. But I do think that Lily, she checks Picard, but I think she checks Trek too and says, it doesn't. The future has to be lived, not just admired, right? And she is grounded. We've said that a lot about her throughout our conversation, that she's grounded. She knows who she is. She knows what she wants to see happen, but she's going to work with the people around her to get it there. And that it's about living. And I think maybe that comes from, the post-war world and environment she's lived in, and it's trying to advance in her own way, right?
Who else? What generation would know more than how do you get to the future? You work for it.
Yes.
And that is Picard sitting there reloading his gun saying, I don't believe in revenge. That's not working for the future that you believe in, my dude. That is
exactly
that's not it at all. So I think she's hard worn about that. And she knows I helped make this warp drive happen. That was work,
That was work. And I think, Jodi, what you were saying about how new tech or things that seem futuristic and seem like they're going to save us aren't all they're cracked up to be. She learned that intimately. That we're talking about the eugenics wars, people. This is literally the idea that eugenics, or that creating a new type of human, a better quote unquote type, a superior type, would save humanity. And of course that's what else bring about its destruction. And I think that there's something really powerful about having that perspective brought into a literal movie with the Borg, who are seeking that same type of perfection, who are eliminating the exact same types of quote unquote weaknesses that come from empathy, physical frailty. It's a very ableist culture. It's a very what the Borg are and eugenics is, and so I think that Lily being so perfectly situated here, historically, to understand that and to completely understand the Borg and Picard's fear of them, and probably fear of what it was like to become them, to have that mindset, even for a little bit, of course, is going to be really scary. And I also think too, she thinks like a revolutionary. She thinks like a activist who knows that you're in for the long haul, you know? And I think that this is something we talk about a lot in activism circles, where you can't just sit around wishing for a better tomorrow without actually doing anything, you know? And I mean, what is it Angela Davis says, like, your silence will not protect you. And there is this kind of idea of like, if you're apolitical, you're like, nothing's going to change. And if you sit around hoping for someone else to change your future and to make the warp drive, it's never going to get made. And I think too here, she is skeptical about this ideal Starfleet future because she's seeing Picard not live out its values in real time. She's seeing him actively go against the values that he's preaching. Yes. And so she's probably thinking, he's just like a lot of these other eugenicists, like people who preached for a better future and then destroyed themselves in the process. And so I just like to think about that a lot when it's not a fun thing to think about, by the way, that we probably won't see freedom or the Starfleet future in our lifetimes. Boy, when I wake up with that thought, I shed a little tear, right. You know, and but I also, exactly. But I also remember why we do it. And then you get out of bed and then you do it and you live the life that you want Starfleet to be, you know. Yes. And I think that Lily is the living example of this because, like you both said, like, she's out here doing it. She's actually going to live into her values instead of just preaching about it. And I think that, especially when I was younger, I wasn't a huge Picard fan, particularly compared to Ashlyn. She was like a huge Picard nerd. And I was just kind of like, he's cool. Like, he's there. And I think a lot of it was like, the inspiring speeches are amazing. And I also want to see some action, you know? And I think that, like, I was big into Kirk and Spock, and like I really was more of a TOS girly, even when we were watching TNG for a while. I love Data, of course, he's my favorite from TNG, right. But I think that, like, because Data lives into those values a lot and he preaches about wanting to be human and then actively works towards it. And I'm not saying that Picard doesn't, but I think that he can sometimes get comfortable in the idea that he's already succeeded and in the idea that he's already living the ideal future that he wants, when Starfleet can always be better, when there's still bigotry on his bridge and there's still like bigotry within himself. And even if it's bigotry against the Borg, it's still 7 of 9, you know, I mean, it's she and him could have had some interesting discussions if we saw more Picard on that subject. But I don't know. I just, it makes me really happy that Lily is sort of challenging so much of what he is out here preaching. And it's really cool.
You know, it makes me think, because obviously Lily isn't so important and integral to the storyline and the character development of our core TNG crew, but I also think that she keeps the movie, Lily as a character keeps the movie from becoming too self-congratulatory. Like, I think she very much so gives us that, like, yes, this is good. What they're doing is good. They're going to defeat the Borg because they're bad. Yes, we get that. But how are we doing that? And at what cost to us as a humanity or as people? And I think that, you know, at its core is a bigger picture of what Lily as a character is achieving for us. Maybe it's clearly part of the 12-part series we need to do, studying the film First Contact, because she is a character who's an outsider to our Trek world, who definitely has a message for us beyond Star Trek and beyond Starfleet. And I think that's powerful. We need more of that. We need more Lily in our life.
Exactly. So true.
Do you think, you know, her skepticism is strong, and she voices that, you know, well, with every word she speaks, there is question and doubt and a desire to understand. But but skeptical of what that answer is going to be and what it is. But do you think it's one of the healthiest things a Trek character, like someone in Trek, can bring into a scene or into a story? Is that healthy dose of true skepticism? I say this with a caveat that, like, I also think the skeptic in Voyager was Neelix.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
He bought into it by, probably about season 4, season 5.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, this is my role. But he questioned and if he hadn't, I think their journey in the Delta Quadrant would have been different. And I really feel like, in a way, Lily lets us believe that you can question this because it keeps it true. That's my perspective.
I feel like the skepticism and the curiosity is almost like two sides of different, of the same coin, where she is a smart person. She's naturally curious. And so she's dubious about how does all of this work? Because I know the world and this doesn't seem like it's going to work. And so I think smart people are naturally also kind of skeptical because they see the reality and they think, how could this possibly, I know these people and they're dumb, how could they actually do this? And I think that's where the hope part comes in. And so she has yes, she's skeptical, but she's clearly a dreamer and clearly still reaches for the stars at the same time. So I think, we see skeptical characters in Star Trek for sure. And I think it aids to their advances in science and their advances in engineering or whatever the field. We Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Don't we see Ethan Phillips in this as a cameo?
Yes.
I holodeck.
That's right. Yep.
And of course, Robert Picardo in the as EMH.
Oh, that was the
Voyager.
That was fantastic. Yes.
The Voyager rep. Yeah.
Voyager's everywhere. Come on.
Yes.
Good.
No, you both bring up really good points, and I think I just realized now, having this conversation, I think skepticism of Starfleet might be a big reason as to why my favorite Trek shows are Deep Space Nine and Lower Decks, because they both provide counterpoints to Starfleet in these really beautiful ways. They question, Mariner is the poster child for still being in Starfleet, but questioning it at every turn, questioning command and hierarchy and leaving Starfleet at one point, and all of this stuff, and finding her own reasons for coming back. And I think, as I spoke about earlier, Kira Nerys also similar as we were talking about with Neelix and with Lily, which, wow, amazing. Random three people to be talking about.
Those are three people you would never put in the same meet, right? They're never going,
right? No. I'm shocked that we're talking about these three characters, but it works because I think similarly, Kira is 100% skeptical about another large institution.
Yes.
Kind of interfering with Bajoran affairs so quickly after the occupation, just as Starfleet seems to be this large institution interfering with human affairs so quickly after World War III and right before his first warp test. Oh my God,
It's distrust. It's a fundamental distrust in the institution. It's well, the world just all fell apart, so why would I try?
Which is important.
I'm skeptical about any advancement.
It is.
Yeah. And I think No,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add that, I'm actually reading this book called How to Go Mad Without Losing Your Mind. It's really good, and it talks a lot about Black creativity and how madness is often involved with that. And she has this whole section in the book where she talks about how particularly people of color are naturally more skeptical about institutions, and people who have been under colonial rule. So people who are under apartheid or who have suffered from colonialism or who have suffered from generational trauma of slavery. The author Lamar Jarrell Bruce, she talks about how there's going to be more of a natural embedded skepticism of large institutions, because there's so many instances of them completely utilizing Black bodies or colonized or like indigenous bodies as a means of like using them as like stairs or rungs on a ladder to achieve their own success or whatever. And so I really think that like Lily being a Black woman representing that skepticism is super important here in this discussion. Like it's really kind of amazing that they were able to have, like Ashlyn said, that hope and the skepticism existing in the same human is amazingly brave of her too, to still have hope with all of this.
Yes. I think what Lily does, and I love that it was a Black woman character doing this, but she reminds us that it's important to question, and that it's and question everything and to ask those questions. And I for my philosophical 2 cents of it, I think we've lost touch with that a little bit in the here and now. There's a fear of asking the right questions and pushing for more. And I think, First Contact and Lily Sloane in particular gives us a healthy dose of that, and that it's okay, and that in fact it can be for the better.
Yes,
to do so. And I think that's a strong, message of it's moral courage, right? Like, she may not identify that as herself. Like, she would probably, as a character, be like, no, that's not me at all. But it is. It is. Because she's constantly questioning. She's constantly protecting. She's constantly doing all these things that we need to do to move forward. Whether that's with a project or with species or as humanity, right? So, yeah. She's special, and First Contact's special because of it. And that she's a Black woman is poignant, and I feel purposeful and resonates still, even after seeing the movie 912 times. Right?
Exactly.
Like she just is that character and that powerful voice, and represents so much more beyond the script of that film.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'm going to veer off of Lily for just a moment, and in each episode of the Women of First Contact, I'm giving a nod to Majel Barrett, because she's still a woman of First Contact in this film. Representing the computer voice, as she's done for so many years and in so many episodes of Trek, but it represents that structure and order and continuity of the institution of Starfleet that we rely upon, right? Like, there's always that calm voice telling us that the ship is going to self-destruct in 30 seconds or whatever, right? Like, and Lily really is that human version of willing to question the system. But I think that the contrast between Lily and that voice that Majel delivers us as the computer that's a fun dynamic there that exists and that we overlook. Because it's just something that's always there. The computer voice is just always there. So I'm wondering, how does Lily's challenge to authority kind of pair with that more structured institutional voice? Like, is it just something we need to remind us that there is order and structure in Starfleet, and sometimes we need that in the world, but yet we still need the people questioning us over that voice or through that voice at times? Curious of your thoughts.
I think, if anything, for me, it makes Lily's perspective just stand out more, because I'm also, seen so much Star Trek that when I hear the computer, it's all like she's almost background noise. Like, obviously you're like, thank you for the exposition. Thank you for telling me what's going on that planet, or like how much percentage of the shields are left. All that is great to know. But like, I think Lily, like, she breaks through that just kind of routine thing for me. Like, I think the computer's voice is so Starfleet. Like, it's one of those things that's just like innately bound up in it, and it's not even like a statement. It's just like it's part of the ship, you know.
Yeah,
it's that voice of Majel Barrett. It's the heartbeat. So I think for me, if it just makes like Lily stand out more.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
That's really beautiful, Ashlyn. Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's nothing like hearing Majel Barrett in the movies particularly. I think like it's really nice to have her continuously come back, you know, of course, as we talked about being this constant. And I think Lily, it's kind of this great also moment of like machine and human, and also like, but still the machine is someone that we find comforting, you know. It's this kind of nice thing where like I can be comforted by both. Like you said, even if she's telling us to self-destruct.
Right.
And even when this is happening, I feel like it's really, I hadn't really thought about it until you brought it up, but it really makes me think how like there was always a comforting Majel just ready to like call us back into the Star Trek universe every time, you know, and it's so special. And Lily, of course, is just an incredible character to have. We have the fortune of being added to the Trek universe to stand alongside incredible characters like the Enterprise or computer, or just the Starfleet computer. Like that's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, I think we do take it for granted in a way, because if you think about in the core of that ship, the questions that get asked of that computer, right? All at the same time, it's happening throughout, like engineering, crew quarters, it doesn't matter, the bridge, there's stuff being tasked upon the computer at all times, and yet it's always the same. It's the same pitch, it's the same timbre, it's the same pace, and it's just that constant. And your analogy of it being a heartbeat to our ships and our crew, it's very true, I think, in a way that it's just, if there's something they all unilaterally depend on, it's the computer. And beyond just making the ship go. Right?
Oh my gosh, totally. Right. I just watched Concerning Flight today when I was at work, because I was like, I need some Voyager and I need some Da Vinci shenanigans. Yes. And that's the one where the computer core gets stolen, and Janeway has to go like get her back, kind of. And I love when she like is talking to the computer on the planet, and she's like, "Computer, do you recognize my voice?" And she's like, "Affirmative." And I'm like, "Oh, our ladies are meeting up again!" Like, thank God, because nothing works without her. Like literally. And then of course Da Vinci's like, "There's a tiny woman living in this machine."
Honestly, if iconic. You could show Da Vinci Spock's brain from the original series, like he might kind of understand.
He might get it. He might get it. Oh, that's what another great one. Yeah, that's
showing the present Spock's brain. Like, You
better write that one down in the journal.
That's a quotable right there.
Yeah. I don't even recommend Spock's brain to like my friends.
No, like, but to Da Vinci, that's core.
I think he would get something out of it. Yeah,
no, he would. Yeah, there would be lots of conversation in the art studio. Lots.
Yes.
100%.
Honored.
Oh, I love it. I want to ask one last fun question. If Lily had one more hour on the Enterprise E, who would you want her to kind of meet or interview or have a dialogue with?
That's a good one. I think I want her and Troy to talk and maybe drink together, because Troy's already like hammered this whole movie. I think it'd be really fun to see sort of and I'm gonna like stereotype a little bit, but I think Troy and Lily represent different like feminine sides, you know, in a lot of ways of Troy being this like kind of softer, more like what is sort of stereotypically effeminate and empathetic and stuff, and Lily being more of this like domineering, like no bullshit kind of badass side of femininity that like questions stuff. And I think it'd be really fun to see them just like throwing back some tequila shots together and talking about how crazy Zefram Cochrane is, and like kind of just being like, oh man, like, oh my gosh, like we are really actually running these ships, aren't we? You know, like just sort of like throwing down together. I would love to be in that room with them, honestly. Yeah.
I think Data. I think her and Data, because she is so curious and she has like so many questions.
Oh, he would love that.
And he would never get tired, and he would be excited to share. And I think she would also just be like also questioning him, like his existence, like, okay, tell me how this works. You know, like, are you fully functional? You know, like tell me everything. Yeah.
Explain this to me. I mean,
totally.
I think she would be kind of bewildered in like what the hell is happening? I think she'd be fascinated by a discussion with Data, and better bonus if Jordy's there too, because I remember like she had a line, Lily, where she was talking about how like she had to scrounge for all the metal that it took to like build the ship and everything, and just with a small amount it was so hard for her to find. And then when she goes on the Enterprise, she's like mind blown, it's everywhere, like how did you ever, this must have costed so much money. That's the whole money kind of conversation. But I think just to see like that side with Jodi too, because obviously he knows the engineering, he knows like what kind of metal that they're using within this time period. And so I think that also could be an interesting, and he's such a clear like history nerd about this era. He's so excited about
he knows about Lily, I'm sure.
I'm sure he does. So I think even better bonus is if you can get Jodi and Data with Lily, but minimum just Data and Lily I think would have a fun time together.
If you follow TNG, you'll get Data, Jodi, and Worf all together at the same time. So they're always together. So
it's always Data, Jodi, and third person Wesley for some seasons. Worf sometimes.
Yes. I had thought it would be interesting to see Lily have a conversation with Worf.
That would be amazing.
Like a true sit down, because I remember a lot of like the times that Guinan and Worf had dialogue, like scenes together, and how she was like approached him in a very almost mothering way and trying to like get him to see a different perspective or to try the prune juice or, you know, any of those things. But I do think that I think Lily would have leaned into his warrior side a little bit, and there would have been a commonality for them to have a little bonding over that, because she understands the gruffness and and the need for it. And he was also a bit of a questioner in his own way, right? You know, but the captain,
I think that they would, at least Worf would be like, you saw that too, right? Like, thanks for talking to the captain. Like, you were doing what I wanted to do. Like, they would at least have that moment. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Then I also wonder, what would Lily be like if she had time just to sit and ask the computer questions?
Oh, you know, she'd be asking everything she could. Yeah.
Everything. She would just... almost like Data, absorbing all the information he could. Like, she would want to know. She'd have serious questions. Someone who wants to question everything, there's her opportunity. Like,
literally.
So
perfection.
Good. Right? Right. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to the two of you, and about Lily, of course. She's just an amazing character. But before we wrap up, I've got two things I want to ask. First, you know, Star Trek celebrating its 60th anniversary. And we ask this a lot of the folks we have on the show, and I wanted to ask both of you, what does Star Trek mean to you? The question, the ultimate question.
Oh my gosh. Rhianna's muted.
Rhianna's like, no.
I was like, I need to collect myself.
I have words, I just can't say them.
I'm just going to start crying. Yeah.
I think we did kind of get to the core already in this conversation, because we've talked about the utopia and the striving to do what you want with your life with no strings attached, except just like it's what you want to do, and you like the ability to have true freedom where you can lead the life that you want. You can have a career or not. You can choose the people you want to be with. They might even be an alien, and it doesn't matter. And you can live on like whatever planet you want, and you can just like get a ship. And I don't know. I think just that idea of not only having the freedom to choose the kind of life you want to live, but then also working with other people to continue. You know, we see in Star Trek episodes like Shore Leave where you think, oh, this is a nice paradise planet, and then maybe they're bored of paradise because they're not doing anything, or maybe there's some underlying dark belly. And the way that we don't get bored of paradise is that because we're humans and we are constantly going to mess up paradise as much as possible. And so we have to be like on it, and we all have to work together, and that working together is really hard, and we are not good at it at all. And so to see a future where everyone, no matter like who they are, their background, their age or race, they are striving to get together. They're not always, but they're trying to get on the same page, trying to be empathetic, see other people's perspective. I think that's the future. That's my religion, is like trying to talk to people, have a real discussion, so we can do the work to get to a Star Trek future.
Period.
Absolutely.
Ashlyn. Great
Yes.
TED Talk. Yes. How Star Trek can get us to the future we want. Yeah.
Yes.
By Ashlyn Gilman. Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. I think for me, Jodi and I were talking a little bit about this pre-show, but I'm such a character-centric person. I've always really enjoyed character arcs, episodes that involve certain characters, things like that. And I think that Trek has just an unending amount of characters that you can relate to personally, emotionally, people you want to strive to be. And so I think about a lot of my growing up and how I would bring a certain action figure to school on a test day of a Star Trek character who would help me get through the scariness of taking a test. Or I would cosplay, do like a little mini, like subtle cosplay of a character that I really needed to draw strength from in order to get through an audition, or, you know, whatever the stressful moment was. And Ashlyn would sometimes, when I ran cross country, she would like yell different characters at me while I was running so that I could like think of like Worf strength, like while I'm running. She'd just be like, Worf! And I'm like, okay, nice. I got a burst of speed, you know? So I think that like,
fantastic.
As you know, that is a huge part of it for me, is like how much these characters have inspired me to also just be myself, like as a person who was very recently diagnosed with autism, but kind of knew for a long time that I was autistic. Like, I think there's so many representations for Trek for people with autism and people who are neurodivergent, like to help to understand yourselves better. I mean, I literally have my Spock shrine right next to me. Like, Spock has been like the love of my life since before like anything else. And I feel like that's because he just like is himself always, no matter what ridicule he gets. And I think that as I'm growing into myself and learning to be more of myself, like Trek has always been my guide in that way. And I am able to draw both like inspiration, but also just like strength and joy from these different characters. And that is so special to me. You know, I think that that's why I love every iteration of Trek. I love the animated series. I love Enterprise. I love Starfleet Academy. All of those shows that people are like, what? I'm like, I derive so much from these characters that teach me in ways that like school could never and even like families could never, you know? And so that's why I consider so much of Star Trek to be like, and why people in the fandom are so much like a family to me. And yeah, it's really changed my life in a lot of different ways, and mainly because it's helped me to just like be more okay with myself and be always okay to express that, you know. And I'm very much openly a nerd, and openly will just like tell people about my Star Trek podcast and read my Star Trek books in public. And it's never been something I've been like afraid to do with Star Trek, because it would be almost like betraying Spock or Data or Jadzia or like Seven. I'm thinking all of my favorite characters from different shows if I wasn't just my true self, no matter where I am. And I think that really comes down to like the unmasking that I've been working on for so many years, of just like literally just being who I want to be. And that's, thanks in part a lot to these incredibly written characters and stories. So it's so special. And it, of course, doing this podcast makes it extra special because we get to talk about it even more.
Right. It's never a bad thing when you can talk more Trek, right?
Right?
Literally. No, I thank you both for that. And there's no wrong answer, because Trek can be something different for everyone. But I think you both really, summed up two big important pieces of what Star Trek and the Star Trek universe is to a lot of people out there. So thank you for that. And before, we sign off, I want to ask, can you let people know, where to find you two and the Duras Sisters podcast?
Of course, yes. We are on all the social media except for Twitter, and which includes even Blue Sky, even Threads, even YouTube a little bit, TikTok,
Tumblr,
Tumblr. Yeah, we got some Tumblr memes. You can listen to us pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts. The exception is YouTube, but we are exploring getting our podcasts on YouTube, so we can say that we're literally everywhere. But yeah, we are the Duras Sisters Podcast on all your socials.
And one other thing I'd love to plug is so relevant to our discussion today of First Contact, because Ashlyn has chosen our next series for the podcast after we finish Trial. We only have Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy.
Oh.
Ashlyn went backwards in time. She time traveled. We have Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy left to talk about. We do. If you don't know, we do our podcast by series, not by Trek series, but by themes. And so we each switch off choosing a theme, whether it's very Trek core, like Mirror Universe, or just kind of random, like caves. We did one in caves.
Love caves.
We're finishing up Trial, and Trial's very Trek core.
Oh, very. There's so many courtroom episodes. And so Ashlyn, actually, we are going to be talking about this movie in our next series, which Ashlyn you chose. So go ahead and announce it here.
Yes, we will be talking about, or we will be doing the Self-Destruct series. So every episode or movie that has a self-destruct,
even if it doesn't get completed, we're still.
It's just it's that time of life where everything's crazy anyway, so we might as well self-destruct and just
absolutely
just talk about how did they get there?
What led you to self-destruct? What led you to that moment? Oh, I love that. That'll be fantastic. Well, I thoroughly enjoy what the two of you do on your podcast, and I hope that everyone listening and watching will go and check it out, because it's a lot of fun. So let me just say a huge thank you again to Ashlyn and Rhianna from the Duras Sisters Podcast for bringing such a fun and thoughtful perspective to this conversation as we celebrated Lily Sloane, the woman of First Contact, and 30 years of Star Trek First Contact. And during a year when we are also celebrating the 60th anniversaries of Star Trek, it is the perfect time to keep honoring the stories, characters, and conversations that have made this franchise so meaningful across generations of fans. And of course, a very special thank you out to our incredible Patreon crew. Your support helps us continue to keep the Clonestar mission going, and we really couldn't do it without you. And to all of you listening and watching, make sure you subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode, and follow Clonestar Podcast on your favorite podcast platform to stay connected for everything new that we release. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, keep going boldly and keep being Trek-tastic.